Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming tonight. You didn't think it was going to be me up here talking, did you? Okay, look, I want to thank everyone for coming along, but I particularly want to thank Chris and Lucas for coming tonight and give us a rundown on the last Sydney to Hobart and hopefully a few other things. And I want to thank Geoff Dunne, who's going to be our MC for tonight. So give them all your appreciation and I'll hand over to Geoff. Thank you.
Thanks, Geoff. I'd like to thank everyone for coming along this evening. There was a good breeze this afternoon for the yacht race, and hopefully Chris and Lucas will enlighten us on their Sydney to Hobart and their ventures they're doing at present. Just before we do get started, Chris's wife Megan sent me through a bio, and on both the guys, and I tell you what, Lucas, you do him up. You do him up big time. So Chris is the head coach at present of Rockwool Sail, which is the Danish GP side team. He's currently involved with them since 2021, so the COVID years would have been a bit difficult, I'd say. And he's also done 6 Volvo Ocean races. He was on Nobel, is that the correct pronunciation, or close enough, in 2017 to 2018, Vestas 2014 to 2015, Camper 2011, 2012, Puma 2008, 2009, Movistar 2005, 2006, Amer Sports 2001, 2002. Which one did you put up on the bricks? 2014, eh? Vestas. One of your highlights. Volvo Ocean Race Musto's Seamanship Award, Leg 4. 2005, 2006. 8 Hobart races. I've had a punt on you for 7. This year, I did not have a bet, and you bloody win the thing. God. And so did Warren Lee. He didn't have a bet either, so not happy. So, InfoTrack Law Connect, 2019 you started with them, and still current. Line Honours on Law Connect in 2023, and you've been in the Australian Olympic team member for Sydney 2000, Athens 2004, 49er Olympic class world champion, 97, 98, 99, 505 world champion, 92, 94 and 2002. That's pretty spread out, Cuddles. Yeah, we won't go back any further. But Chris is 53 years of age at present. Got a birthday coming up in June. But now we get on to Lucas Chapman. Now, I went to school with Lucas's father at Warners Bay High. He was just telling me he's been a good Catholic boy. He went to St Mary's. So, but have a go at this CV. His qualifications: RYA Yachtmaster Offshore, RYA Coastal Navigation, RYA Powerboat, Marine Radio Operator, Offshore Medic, Sea Safety and Sea Survival Certificate, a PADI Scuba Open Waters, and his skills are Autodesk Inventor. That sounds a bit unusual. SolidWorks. Hopefully you don't do any floppy works. FEA and Expedition. So that's all a bit above my pay grade. His experience as Sail GP, Rockwool team member for Denmark, 2022 to present with Chris. Super Maxi Entertainment, Law Connect Racing Team, 2019 to present. Volvo Ocean Race, Turn of the Tide on plastic, 2017-2018. He's a mechanical engineer and mechanical drafter. So, excellent CV. Kills cutters. But anyway, Chris has got a bit of a PowerPoint presentation and a bit of a discussion. I think Meg's going to transfer that over from the original video. And then I'll just have a few questions for the boys, and they'll go through quite a bit, and then we'll open it up towards the end and for any questions from the people here this evening. So it's pretty casual, and oh, you're going to put the video on again, Meg? Yeah, that's fine for those who missed it. Has anyone not seen it? No, we'll do the video first then.
The seesaw battle for line honours in this historic 78th edition of the Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. A race to remember. At the break of dawn, the two 100-foot maxis, Andrew Comanche and Lord Connect, made their final charge towards the finish line, with Comanche holding onto a narrow lead.
This morning, I came out on deck and folks were a little down because they stretched on us this morning. They were quite far in front. They were twice as far in front last year, and we almost got them. They were like 3 miles from the finish. I was like, let's get it together. You guys are awesome, and we can do this.
The exhausted but determined crew aboard Lord Connect slowly closed the gap with Comanche, summoning the last of their physical and mental reserves for the final tactical battle as the pair toiled up the last stretch of the Dunne River.
As we're coming down the Dunne, the last 10 miles there, we saw it was going to be hot, and we sent one of the bowmans up the mast and said, "It's a glass out, we're going to stop." And the other boat's going to come down to us and go, "Jeez, that's no good."
What an extraordinary finish. The lead changed 3 or 4 times in the Dunne, but finally, now is the hour for Christian Beck and Lord Connect. Following 3 consecutive prize-made finishes, Christian Beck's Lord Connect clinched their maiden victory in spectacular fashion. 51 seconds ahead of last year's winner, Andrew Comanche.
To win the Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race is a great dream come true, especially against Comanche, because it's such a good boat. To actually beat them in a circumstance where the lead changed so much was an incredibly exciting experience all around.
An emotional roller coaster, which ranks alongside the greatest finishes in the race's history. Almost 75 miles behind, 3 mini maxis, URF Group, Alive and Moneypenny lead the charge in the overall standings to clinch the coveted National Cup, awarded to a winner on directed time.
So an excellent result for Chris. Just looking at my notes here, they did the race in 1 day, 19 hours, 3 minutes and 58 seconds, and the margin was 56 seconds. Is that correct in the finish? So an excellent result. I'll hand over to Chris now to continue on with the presentation.
Thank you, Dunne. Yeah, thanks for having us here, guys. And yeah, pretty. How cool was this nor'easter today? Watching it run out. I got to watch it. It was like, look good. So I guess a couple of things. This is, this is the Lord Connect boat of where it started off. It's had quite a checkered life. It started off as speedboat on the left. Virgin Atlantic, so Branson come on board that way back in the day, and the people that were running it then, they wanted to do a 24-hour record, and they got Richard Branson and his daughter came along for the 24-hour record. And back then, everyone used to think you needed 30 or 40 knots to go set a 24-hour record. So off they go in 20 or 30 knots, and within the first 3 hours, so much white water over the deck, they've washed 2 life rafts off the boat and just destroyed the boat. And that was the last we've seen of Richard Branson and his daughter. Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, we've lost them. Another good potential sponsor gone from the industry. After that, it became Ramble 100, and during the fastnet, it snapped the keel off and went upside down. And luckily, everyone was okay, but it was pretty touch and go. And then the boat got fully rebuilt as Perpetual Loyal, and they won a Hobart there, I think, didn't they? Yeah. Yep. And then the current owner, Christian Beck, bought it, and then one of his companies is InfoTrack, and another one is Law Connect, and that's kind of. And then we've done, you know, lots of modifications along the way, but it's currently it's, you know, it's probably the second fastest maxi yacht in the world behind Comanche.
And just a quick question, Chris. When did the campaign start, and how were you involved for this year or last year's Hobart?
Well, that's a good one for Lucas, because he's there more often than most. And just before you jump in, like, we've got a core group of you know, like young trimmers, Lucas, Alex Geoff, Charlie White, and they've been living around here, the three of them, and they do a lot of the work on the boat throughout the year. But they're the kind of, like, you know, these guys are the ones that make or break a campaign. And it's funny, you know, like, there's a hierarchy and such, and we try and keep it a level management system, but in the end, when you know, like, the briefing that we have on the phone the night before the Hobart race or the morning of, that's the one you want to be listening to, because it's kind of these guys that will make, you know, that will sort it out, and it's really, really interesting to.
So who actually runs that meeting?
Oh, that's just me, Lucas, and the boys having a chat, going, you know, because you get the briefing off navigators, weather guys, and then the owner, and then the media, and you just kind of go, and then we just go, well, I think this is going to happen, and usually we're kind of pretty close to the money, and then you know, like, we know exactly what to look out for, the pitfalls, and then, you know, you get these guys on side, then everything seems to run pretty smooth.
Yeah, the dynamic on board is kind of like the kids and then the older responsible adults.
And I thought I was quite nice to you then. I didn't even mention your red hair.
Yeah. I'm 32 years old. Am I 32? 31. Turning 32.
32.
Yeah. But yeah, that is kind of the dynamic on board. The three young guys that Chris just mentioned, kind of, they come up with the good ideas at the back of the boat, and we basically make it happen. Because if you let them make it happen, then it'd probably be all backwards. So
it's kind of fantasy land back where I am in adventure land, you know, the usual story.
Yeah.
So to you, Lucas, what was different about this preparation to the previous races you've done in the Hobart?
Yeah, well, I mean, for the last 5 years I've been with this team, and as Chris said, there's been sort of that core group of guys that have been there. And we do run like a pretty similar program every year in terms of our lead up and the races we do and the prep we do beforehand. So it kind of feels reasonably similar most years. But I guess results-wise, we sort of felt pretty good this year in terms of some of the results we had. But yeah, like we start our program the end of November, basically. We lead up with the Cabbage Tree race, and then there is the Maxi Boat series that happens. So there's a few coastal races in and out of the harbour, and then also it finishes up with Big Boat Day. So we won Big Boat Day this year, which kind of, left us feeling pretty good at the end of our preparation. So, and there's a few moments in those races where we know we can have a decent piece of these guys. So, we always knew we had to, kind of fight and hang on, and we would have a crack at it. So yeah, the prep this year was awesome. We had a good time, and we always put the boat together pretty well. It is a fine line though with sailing this 100-footer. Basically, you kind of got to balance how much sailing you do with just wearing the boat out. So, the sheets on the boat and the runners and furling lines, they all just get an absolute flogging. So basically, you'll end up burning through rope really quickly. So it is a bit of a fine line with how we kind of manage our sailing versus the trade-off to just ruining the boat.
So the owner's a Kiwi. Is the boat based in New Zealand, or it will travel regularly throughout the sailing season in Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere? What's the position there?
No, it sits on the dock between now and November, like mid-November, and there's a fair bit of work going on it. But we won't sail it until mid-November. They're a one-off item in the world. They're expensive to run. You don't kind of get them off the dock for under $25,000. So they just burn through the money, the rope, and the people. So when we have a really good core group of people, and we definitely run a no dickhead policy on board the boat, and we have one of the most solid crews for sure that I've seen on the 100-footers for sure.
So the owner step on, step off, or quite involved with the campaign, or he leaves it up to yourself to organise with the crew, the onshore crew as well as the sailing crew?
Yeah, well, he certainly knows how much money we spend. He kind of, he's pretty cool. You saw on the footage from the Hobart where he goes, the boat's a bit of a shitbox, but it's actually the basic, dimensions of the boat. It's a good 100-footer, but we usually operate on a budget about a third of any other 100-footer in the world. So
yeah, I just did some Google today, and the actual boat, the price tag is 1.6 million. Add your wage to that.
About 1.59.
Yes. Yeah. So, and Lucas, what's the decision process like when you're actually in a race? Is it a pecking order of old blokes and young blokes, or is it a one person makes the call, or it's a judgmental discussion? What's the process?
This wasn't the questions we gave you.
Yeah. Nico's just the big hierarchy leader, he just steamrolls everyone. He can't get a word in. No, it is a pretty good setup in terms of decision making, and I am always impressed to see how sort of clean and quiet our boat is. I've sort of watched a lot of the footage. You can see like Channel 9 at the start, and they're on other boats. You can kind of see how quickly the fever can develop and how much people start shouting, and we know that just doesn't work. So, as Chris said earlier, we have a no dickhead policy sort of on board, and that just goes through all areas of the boat. Our boat is probably one of the quietest and cleanest, I think, in terms of manoeuvres and how we run the boat. And I think that was highlighted to me in the Derwent when it did come down to the wire, how sort of clean our decisions were. And back to your point, we do have one person's voice that we listen to, and that is Chris when we're in sort of a tactical setup. But we're feeding information to him and to Tony all the time with the trim and the numbers, and then the navigators coming up on deck giving them even more information. So you know, they do have a bit to juggle at the back of the boat, and we're, you know, the young guys are always coming up with some crazy ideas that they kind of have to shut down in a nice way sometimes. But
everyone was pretty quiet in the Derwent though.
Yeah.
Towards the,
Yeah.
It was like
no one wanted to put an
No,
end
no.
to that. Yeah, that was all you, mate.
yeah.
Just going back to the beginning, what did happen after the start?
Yeah, well, we end up snapping a furling line that rolls up the masthead zero. But you wind the story back further than that. We'd been told by Lucas and Gothy that, you know, these furling lines need replacing, but we don't
No
have
one
the
listened
money.
to us.
So we kind of gone, no, the furling line will be right for another race. And then we're coming into the mark, and one of the bowmen or mid-bow guys, he's going, ready to furl in, 10 seconds. I go, no, we're pushing it in here. Like, we need a lead here. So I go, on my call, and then, which I normally don't overrule like that. So, but I did because I wanted as much lead as we could. And then we go, and we start the furl, and I'm going, whew, everything's looking good. And then the furling line snaps and go, wow, everything's looking really bad now. Like, and I'm just going to look so ordinary, and then we actually had to jibe around, which is quite a move on a 100-footer with a masthead zero from upwind. And
We also had the J1 up inside it, which was not a good
but
combination.
I can remember saying to Tony and the boys, said, we got to point really high because there was an exclusion zone up off north there. And I said, we've got to point high, and then if they can't get this fixed, then we're going to have to jibe. No, we're not jibing. I've gone, well, we're certainly not tacking. Not with that sail, because it'll just destroy itself. I said, so I'll come back in 10 seconds, and then we're probably going to have to jibe. Fuck, not jibing. And then it's like, jibing, right. And it was just like, it was such a manoeuvre to do, and then the usual story, and then, there's no one on the leeward runner, and it's like chaos. Here's how you drop a rig. It could have easily just spat the rig out there and then. That would have made some good publicity, which the owner would have been happy with.
Yeah, it looked pretty impressive on television, watching the coverage on Boxing Day. And then you were first out of the heads, and then it looked pretty close with another couple of yachts just around with you. And what was your tactic from the heads once you went around the rounding mark? Was it to go out to sea, cover the shoreline? What was your thoughts there?
Oh, we kind of had a bit of, initially there at one stage, we're just trying to keep it all in one piece as things were breaking and whatnot. And that's kind of a general theme on board our boat. And then, we kind of got down the coast, and the forecast was really quite difficult with, thunderstorms down the racetrack, and we kind of had, we had to juggle between Scallywag and Comanche where we think we would do. But in the end, we had a fairly simple plan of just trying to be to the east of them pretty much all the way to Hobart, and it wasn't really that technical a game plan, but it worked really well. And Comanche, like they're 2 knots faster than us pretty much in most conditions, at least, and they just kept coughing up miles, being on the wrong side of us and getting cleaned up by the thunderstorms even worse than we were, and we just kept taking miles off them. And then out the front of the Derwent, we were 30 metres behind them as we entered the Derwent. Like, it was we were all over them the whole way. It was really.
So what is the major difference between Comanche and Law Connect? I read your article in the Herald that you did an interview with one of the journalists, and you more or less rubbished Law Connect as far as
the boat.
Yeah, the boat. Yeah. Not the effort and the race, but the actual boats themselves. What's the major difference there?
Yeah, 2 knots. Yeah. Oh, we've always got a hard balance in terms of the budget, and we kind of. We say we draw the line on the boat always being safe, But, we have to cut corners on things like furling lines and number of days sailing. And so, we always make sure we've got the best people possible. So in the end, we start the race off with a pretty good functioning boat, and we destroy the thing by the time we get to Hobart. And that's more so because not everything on it's new. Our sails are 2 or 3 years old, the ropes are 2 or 3 years old, and that's not really how you should run a top end 100-footer. So, we get what we ask for in that area.
Yeah. And Lucas, what's Nico's food and clothing program like for a Sydney to Hobart?
Oh yeah, what's that saying? Never trust a skinny chef. It's kind of applicable here, and I don't know. I've kind of done some other sailing with Chris as well, and I've quickly figured out that his eating habits offshore are pretty terrible. So he has been known to do an entire Volvo on one meal of freeze dry, which is the pasta carbonara. So if you want some variety, it's not the best sort of setup. But we got there in the end. You had to bring a few extra snacks in your bag, and that was sort of how we got through.
Do you still get seasick?
Yeah, a little bit, enough.
Is that why you don't eat, or you're just a
that's
finely tuned athlete?
That's one of the reasons why I don't have too much spicy food. But we take also 4 guests from the sponsor. So normally I try and unload the food program onto one of them, and luckily we had someone that really showed a lot more care about the food for all the guys than I do. And so I think everyone ate pretty well, didn't they?
No, we did okay. Yeah. We didn't go hungry.
Yeah.
What other roles do you get the guests to do? Obviously, you've got your racing crew.
Yeah. Well, we kind of had, out of the 4 guests, how many? We had one good one this year.
Yeah. It is a bit of a lot. It's a bit of a lottery every year. Yeah.
In the past, sometimes we've had 4 absolute legends, but this time a couple of them were pretty. One was in the bunk sick the whole time.
Our intention was to have one of them run the live feed on board. So we had about 5 or 6 cameras mounted around the boat, and he was working at the company, and I think he's like a software engineer. So it was sort of his little domain to run all the live feed, and I think he did a pretty good job of that. But basically, he would sit at the nav station and select which camera was streaming at that time, and then throw up on the navigator. So that was kind of a bit of a management. But yeah, so a mixture of roles that they get. That was probably a more useful role for the team, being able to manage that, because that's just a responsibility that no one really wants to have, being the OBR on board. And then it is, just like Chris said, the food program and general help around the boat, like pushing buttons when we say we do a deploy of one of the masthead sails. It's quite hard because you've got a winch sort of about this round spitting rope at you rather quickly. So you kind of have to press the foot button and pull the rope. So if we can get them to sort of come in and press a button and help us out, or flake a sheet into a rope bag, it really does help. So we do give them useful jobs around.
And they're good they keep us fed, which is super important, because if it was probably left to us, we wouldn't do a very good job. But it's interesting, like Christian, the owner, he's like the 5th person, and he kind of calls himself a guest. But it's interesting, we don't have enough bunks on the high side. We don't have anyone sleeping to leeward, so we don't have enough bunks on the high side. But he never got in a bunk the whole time, so we could have a bunk, and that's the owner. But the employees didn't quite see it that way, and we couldn't get a couple of them
just looked
out of
at
the
Lucas then.
Yeah,
What's the story?
Exactly. So I'm gonna get some grief off these guys towards the start of the next race, going, we need bunks this year. And it's like, we need to kick the guests. The guests this year, I think we'll just turf them.
So were they personalities, or how do you get to be a guest?
No, it's drawn out of a hat. Like a lot of their staff volunteer for it, drawn out of a hat. And yes, yep. And then it's up to us get them there.
So what's your number of professional sailors on board?
14 usually, and then
Okay.
five. So we're like, where everyone else would be, what, 19 or 20 pros?
Yep.
One or two guests.
Do they do any of the pre-races with you, or it's just your 14?
No, they do Cabbage Tree, Big Boat, and then any day that we...
Yeah, it is our intention to sort of, assimilate them into the team so they are useful. And I guess the biggest thing is, like, from a safety point of view, we want them to be able to move around the boat safely. So we don't want that first night offshore to be the start of the Hobart race, that they're, just getting used to the boat. So yeah, we do try and get them in the training and help out around the boat when we can.
So did you guys get any sleep on the 1 day, 19 hours trip at all, or were you virtually on deck?
Golden pillow.
Haven't you seen how much young kids need to sleep?
Yeah.
They never work.
That's because we do so much on board. We did get some kip. It was fine.
And obviously doing a few yourselves, how would you rate it, the race itself, as far as conditions go? Because you've had some pretty wild ones, you've had some soft ones. How would you rate the last year's?
I would say this was reasonably tough, more so in terms of just like variability in the conditions. So I think it's quite easy when you can just turn right at the heads and then you're off in a nor'easter for a few days. You might get a southerly come through, but we had, like, the first night was just, we were getting hammered by these thunderstorms that were coming off the land. So yeah, it was super like, we're always changing sails, would go from 20 knots to 30 knots and then 180 degree wind shift. So it was, it was a pretty tricky one, I'd say, in terms of the past races. And even though it wasn't like slamming up wind for 2 or 3 days, I think that's sometimes almost easier because you can kind of lock the boat in and just drive around the waves, whereas this, we were just dealing with so many different things.
Oh, you're one of those people, Dunne. But one thing that I know Lucas and I had, like, we're on the same watch together, and like, I discussed the plan that if the thunderstorms roll out, and these weren't little thunderstorms like this, they're probably, 20, 30 miles across, are massive cells. And I said, thunderstorm rolls over, we need to head southeast to get out of the thunderstorm and get back into the nor'east breeze. Because at that stage you're in a westerly, so it's a 180 degree shift, it's just carnage. And then every time we would come back up either during our watch or during our off watch or at the start of our watch, and it was just chaos on deck. And they're having one, and we just kind of go, so then it'd take us like, half the watch to try and
put out the fire and get back in.
Yeah.
So how far down the coast were you when those first thunderstorms came through?
New South Wales.
Yeah. Bottom of New South Wales.
Down past Bateman's Bay.
Yeah. There was one in particular, one that we came up on watch for. We'd been sort of ripping along, I think with the J0 up maybe, and then it kind of got really windy from the west, and we were, pointing towards New Zealand. And that was probably one of the bigger incidences on board where we tried to furl the J0 in plenty of wind and probably doing about 30 knots of boat speed, and had one go at it and got it away sort of, and then it started to unroll again. And when that happens, like, it's just no good at all. So we basically had to redeploy the sail, and then in that process we ended up tearing the sail quite like big across the bottom of the sail. So that was then pretty much put away and not being able to use again. So yeah.
And were there any other yachts visible for you on your trek down when all this was happening? Were they having similar problems, or it just sort of centred on yourselves?
I guess more often than not we could see Comanche, I guess. For the majority of the race we could see them. Like I said, they're always to the west and they're always struggling more than us, only slightly, but it was enough that it was enough that we could hang with them the whole way down. So it was, and then you could see at one stage they must have just had enough of losing miles to us, and they decided to sail out to the east and get in the same patch of water as us, and then they just take off over the horizon. And it's just like, oh, that's pretty depressing. But that's just how fast. That's how fast that boat is compared to ours. It was going to get chartered in Europe, and Lucas and I were going to do a fair bit of sailing on it, but at the moment that charter deal's probably fallen through, so it could, it's ready to go on the ship, so it'll either go on the ship in the next month, or it might sit here for a year, or it might sit here and get chartered. Don't know, it's kind of not, they're kind of big decisions for someone.
And that breathtaking finish, and then of course the celebrations. Run us through the evening celebrations.
Yeah, well, it wasn't too bad.
Was it young'uns doing what they wanted to do, and the oldies sort of rested, or what happened, Lucas?
It's the other way around on our team. All the old boys just want to get on the piss. But it is a bad combination when people haven't slept for 2 days. And they're dehydrated and hungry, and then you go and give them a jug of rum and coke. It's not the best recipe. But we kind of didn't give it too bad of a nudge. I think our record in Hobart's about 10 grand or something. $9,500 at the customs house. So it wasn't that good.
6 or 7.
Yeah, we're 6 or 7. So we need to really up our game. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Like 9 grand's a decent hit.
Yeah.
At the bar.
But we actually had to deliver the boat back the next day, so that was kind of in the back of our minds, and it wasn't an easy trip home either. So we kind of didn't want to go too hard. But,
and I understand you had your 2 young fellas on the way back, and it was pretty hairy. They didn't get to see much on deck time, and you actually, I don't know if it was stretching the truth, but he did say you actually came home quicker than what you did the race.
It might have been pretty close, yeah. Yep. It was a quick trip home.
For sure it'll be a delivery record, but it was 30 to 45 knots all the way home. And it was actually too much. I remember Lucas and I looking at each other just going, really don't need it. Like, it was too windy. Like, to have that boat in 45 knots, and it's like, but once you're there, it got breezier than we thought, and you just kind of going. We had seven good guys and what?
Yeah, probably
11?
another 7 guests or something.
Well, 7 guests.
Yeah. Or maybe more. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also took the guy who was building my house, and I get him.
Is the quote blown out?
That's why the house has taken forever.
Get him up on deck, and because we'd sent the guests down, and also, we're there the first night, and I'm going, oh, sorry boys, I know that, yes, we've had a big race and we've had a big night in Customs House, and we were supposed to get a lot of sleep, but I've gone, the first night, no, we're all up, the normal race crew, so we're doing an all-nighter, and then I get my house builder up the next morning early while it's still rough. And I said, look, there's the odd breaking wave coming over the back of the boat, but Charlie here driving, he'll give us a heads up of a wave coming in. When it does, drop to your knees or drop down on the deck, happy days. So Charlie is just in another world, doesn't see the breaking wave coming in. It hits me and Curtis, my builder, and one other guy, and just irons us out. Like, at the end of your tether, about to go off the back of the boat, and I've gone, oh, that hurt a bit. And I look across and I can see him, he's not in good shape. And we thought he'd hurt his back, and we thought maybe he punctured a lung, but he broke 5 ribs.
Truly. Are you still ventured on?
No.
No?
we put him in the bunk for the rest of the trip, but gave him some decent
So
painkillers.
Lucas is the medic.
Right. Yeah, I read that on your impressive
So if you need a
CV.
suppository.
Yeah? Nah, I'm right at present.
Ready to go.
All right, okay.
Now, you obviously got back safe and sound, and to present day, you both had a big weekend with Sail GP in Sydney Harbour. You've been involved with the Danish crew and with Lucas, and I believe Lucas's partner's in opposition. She's with the Australian team. So, but at least you got one up on them. You got the girl, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. I'm taking him down from the inside.
And you moved out of home too, so you're residing locally together?
It's quite expensive because, like, I'm sure the Australians set up, everyone has a hotel room. The Danish, everyone has a hotel room, but I'm not really sure if they run that program.
Oh, right.
We just take one each.
It's got to be an investigation.
Yes.
Yeah. You don't remember when we did the 18s? We used to fly back on the seaplane, and because you had to do, actually your sports awards aren't in there. That was rigged. How many of them did you win?
That's why you weren't supposed to go back that far.
Yeah, I have known you for probably coming up 40 years now. So, just give us a little bit of an insight to the weekend of the Sail GP and how did that go for you? The Australian team won, and how did the Danish go?
They were second, so which was like we really needed because we'd had a couple of bad events in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. I think we had a 7th and a 9th, so it was kind of like it was one of those events. The Sydney one was where your season either survives or it dies there and then, and that was kind of like so. It was a really, really good result for us there. But like the Sail GP, really it evolves so fast. Like the roles that Lucas and I do have changed so much in the time we've been there. You know, the skipper and the CEO, they're guys that Lucas and I have known from the Volvo. And so we're good friends. We've got a really cool team. You know, it's quite enjoyable group of guys to be around. And so we're hoping to kind of keep chipping away and hopefully make the final 3 boats in San Fran later in the year.
So when's the next regatta on for Sail GP, and what country is that in?
We go to Christchurch in New Zealand, and that's in another 3 weeks, I think. And then, from there it's Bermuda, Halifax, New York, and then San Fran. So it's kind of coming to the last, 5 or so events that wrap up the season. We're just hoping to be in the top 3 at the end.
But you're doing, so Lucas was safety diver, shore crew, and in this event was rib driver, like driving the rib, and like they're all like, you think driving the rib, like you think it's an easy job, but in
you've got a
Sydney
bit
Harbour,
on. So from the tech site where we launched the boats, it's it's a bit of a way to the racetrack under the bridge past the Opera House. And as people that know the harbour know, that area is quite busy with ferries and also speed restrictions and stuff. But we actually had to long tow the F50s, which means they're basically about 100 metres behind the rib with a tow rope attached to them, and then we do about 30 knots under the bridge, try and dodge all the other boats and the ferries to get the boats to the race course. So that's probably the most hectic part of the day for everyone involved, especially when it's windy. So that, just the logistics of getting the boats to the racetrack is a massive feat. And, there's a lot of room for error there. So, there is a bit going on.
Wild Oats will be back. I think they're modifying their boat yet again. And they used to have dagger boards like our boat, then they went to a single centreboard rudder at the front. And now they're going to go back again, make a few more additions, spend lots of money and go about the same. So they'll be back. Maybe Blackjack might come back out from Europe. Scallywag, I think, is definitely on.
And then maybe Comanche.
Yep, maybe Comanche, and I guess Warro will be there on his 100. So we could, you know, a few months ago we were quite concerned that it might only be 2, but it could be 5 or even 6. So, but it's a bit weird because, you know, we've been kind of blessed that we've always had lots of boats to compete against, like 400 or 500 footers. But, you know, like in January, we're just going, wow, if all these boats go overseas like they're thinking about doing, we're by ourselves, and like that's not really a race. You know, that's not a race I'm that keen to go and do, because, you know, you win. If you're the only 100 footer, you're going to win every time unless you do something just so wrong. But if we're competing against, you know, Oates and Comanche, for us to be able to beat that boat, like, we have to do almost everything spot on, and that's pretty rare. I said to the guys down in Hobart, you'll get to do 1 or 2 of these races, I reckon, in your lifetime, where you hardly make any mistakes, and like that was a race that we had, and that was, to me, the most. We didn't win it right at the finishing line. We won it all the way down from the start to the Derwent, in terms of how close we were to them, and like it was just such a cool race to be part of. Yeah. It's all staged. Yeah. Yeah. We're out there having a sleep.
Yeah.
And just come in and put on for TV.
Yeah. But as Chris said, like, we didn't win the race in the last few minutes there. I think also it goes back even further than just this race. Like, that team has been building now for the last sort of 5 years, and as we said earlier, we've had the same core group of guys. So I think, you know, it's been a bit of a build-up even in the last few years, rather than even just this race or the prep we did for this race. I think it's been, you know, a build-up of a team, and it's a credit to Tony and to Nico on the teams that, you know, they've put together. So I think, yeah, it definitely goes further back than just the race itself, and it's about the people who've got involved in it, so it's a credit to them on that.
We might just open it up to the floor here for questions. I'll come over with the microphone, or can you hear?
I had some awesome Donnie. I don't know, like, I had some awesome conversations, because like going across the Derwent, Christian, the owner, he's into me. Like, it's blowing, I don't know, 15 knots, right? And our masthead zero, we only would take up into 8 knots. He goes, look, I don't care if you want to use the masthead zero and the rig brakes. And I just go, Christian, we're going as fast as we possibly can. We're not putting up the masthead zero and just going to go slower and tip on our side. Yeah, but I don't care if that's what you want to do. I said, yeah, I get it. We're going as quick as possible. And he's kind of going, yeah, but you know, could we do it? No, we can't do it. Like, you know, and it's just like, and we had a couple. What else went on? There was I remember there that, you know, like, we always kind of joke that the boat's only just holds together, and it kind of does in a lot of ways, and there's all kinds of, what do we have, engine alarms or hydraulic alarms, and someone will go, oh, we got a hydraulic alarm. I go, I don't care. And, you know, then we got another alarm. It's like, yep, you deal with it. It's like we literally weren't showing much care for the boat.
We wrung its neck pretty well to the very end.
Yeah.
But in terms of like what you'd call sort of the different, I sort of see one of the biggest points is the crew work at the end of the race. So, and I think that also became evident to me in Big Boat Day, where you kind of race in the tight racetrack around the harbour, and that is where you need perfect crew work and good decisions from the back of the boat and clear decisions that the rest of the crew can do. And I like when I watch the footage back, that's what I sort of see as the highlight. And I think that also comes from just the fact that we've sailed that boat probably for longer, and that, you know, like they've gone out and sort of chartered the fastest boat, but maybe didn't spend as much time, you know, working on the crew dynamic and boat handling, which I think we probably have that edge there.
We did at the, toward the end there, right at the dirt, right at the very end, you said have a quiet boat. How do you communicate from the back of the boat to the front of the boat without letting communicate?
The front of the boat kind of, you know, they always have a good sense of what is going on, and, you know, like then there needs to be good comms between me, the driver, and the trimmers, and, you know, and I don't know, I guess someone relays it. I don't have to yell too loud. Yeah. But like we kind of, I don't think I was having to yell too much. I had to yell at Comanche a little bit, but.
Do you have comms on board at all, or it's all just?
We do, but like the bowman we have, who's really the two bowmen we have, they're both Spanish, and you know, it gets
exactly.
It gets lost in translation pretty fast. But I understand all these hand signals, so we're fine on the starting line. You know, like. Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of Spanish, that just reminds me. Did you own the Pajero, or was that Bordy or someone else?
Boydie, I think. Yeah.
Bordy, yeah. And for those of you who don't know, the translation for Pajero in Spanish and English is wanker. And the two Spanish that came out pre-2000 games, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The Spanish guys and the 49ers just burst out laughing when they saw a Pajero parked at 38A.
Yeah, but like our bowmen, yeah, like we said, they're both Spanish, and they're just like incredible sailors, athletes, you know, work ethic. Like they were out on the bowsprit getting the furling line replaced like in record time. They're so enjoyable to go sailing with. The
young side or the old side?
They're on the young side.
Yeah.
All the good ones are on the young side.
That's it, yeah. Kiwi, Aussie, Spanish, what else?
It's probably about 8 or so, or 6 maybe.
Aussies?
Yeah.
More than that.
More?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, probably, I don't know, 4 kilos.
So who relocated to live at Dudley from the article I read?
Yeah, that was Alex and Charlie. So they both moved in across the road from me just to be nice and close.
Yeah. I think they've had a couple of tie-ons at the Dudley pub. So.
Yeah.
So we got one from Steve.
No way. No. Yeah, 100%. Like, we really changed, you know, like, we go out every single day, we go out training, we would do minimum of 5 practice starts. We're probably the only boat that does that. Again, it's hard on the people, hard on the gear, but that's what we do. And, you know, like, we disqualified those guys last year in the Maxi Boat Series because they were just flat out dangerous with what they were doing on the start. So 100% we're by the rules just like anyone else. But there was I think maybe the incident you're talking about was a port starboard with Scallywag. Yeah, and that to me worked perfectly fine from it. Yeah, like, you know, like we can race the boats almost like a dinghy, and the rules apply just the same for a dinghy as us. Like, you know. Yeah, well, they kept being to the west too far of us, and you know, and they actually didn't even. I don't think they broke anything either. You know, we destroyed a sail, and yeah, and we we had to stop for a little while with damage. So yeah, like I don't know why. You know, like if I was on that boat, I would have plonked it to the east of us, and you would have sat there faster all day long, and like, you know, that should have been 4 hours in front of us by the time they got to Dunne, but they were like 30 metres. Like, but also if you look at, as we come to the finishing line and you look at our manoeuvres and how we're rowing the boat, how we're furling the sails, like that boat has faster winch speed than us, and it has a better keel system than us. But for some reason, they couldn't time it, they couldn't coordinate it, they didn't have the people. I don't know what, that's their deal. But like, we were just into them. Like, yeah, and we were just like, we were pretty aggressive, I would say. Like, and you know, they kind of got back in the lead, and then they kind of allowed us to go up and over them, and I just, why on earth you would, you know, we would have, if that was us, we would have taken them to the other side of the harbour, like, you know, and but they kind of, you know, they made errors and we didn't. And
so who was there? Local?
Yeah, pretty much.
Have you had a discussion with anyone off their boat, your equivalent, or Lucas?
Yeah.
Have you had any discussions with them?
Yeah, well, the Spanish mafia on their boat weren't so happy, so they also have a Spanish bowman, and they were sharing some pretty strong words in the pub afterwards.
So they could jump ship.
Yeah, yep.
Oh, they would.
They will.
What was the deal where you had to slow down to
Yeah, they at one of the stages they came on the radio on Channel 16, calling us, and then we were trying to respond to them, and either our radio wasn't working or theirs wasn't. So it was really quite concerning. So we actually stopped racing, and because just prior to that, in the hour before that, a massive thunderstorm had gone over. And, you know, like I've literally been in this position before where, you know, where another boat has lost a person overboard, and then you're there searching for the person. So we'd stopped, and then we couldn't get them on the radio, and then we sent text to their sat phone, and then we rang race control, and couldn't get hold of them either on the first call. Then we tried ringing their sat phone. So I don't know what, we stayed stationary for half hour, 40 minutes or something. Like, we coughed up a heap of miles. And then at one stage there, when it looked like, you know, they were 2 or 3 miles in front of us across Storm Bay, and you're just going like, we're going to lose this. One of the reasons we would lose it is because we did the right thing. We would have probably put in for it if we had lost, but then I withdrew the protest on the proviso that they did an investigation into it so it wouldn't happen again, but I haven't seen or heard anything
So
on it.
who's they? The race committee,
yeah,
or
the CYC, you know. So it's just not, you know, it's not. That's not, has nothing to do with racing. All it has to do with is safety. And so, yeah, it wasn't going to be the way we wanted to win the race either, if that was the case. But in the end, hopefully they'll look into it and hopefully advise everybody. You know, to take it back, the reason why they were trying to call us was because they couldn't see us on AIS. And we're just going, AIS comes in and out all the time. It's unreliable. And we're just going, why would you call us on the emergency channel for that? Yeah. Yeah, and we're just kind of going, you know, like, and then we couldn't get them on the sat phone, and that's a major. So.
And you never found out why you couldn't speak to them, communicate with them?
Yeah, just because we were probably too far in VHF range. You know.
I have a question for both Lucas and Gareth. Like you guys are at the top of your game, sailing around the world in all sorts of sailing. Who would be like you, like your idol, or the people that you would look up to in the sport, and why would you look up to those particular people or person?
I'm sitting right next to him.
50 bucks.
Yeah, and my old man sitting over there.
Yeah.
No, in all seriousness, I guess I kind of basically started, you know, the whole quest to do a Volvo because I watched the videos of Chris, you know, those years ago. And, you know, when I was at uni, I was supposed to be doing my uni assignments in the computer lab, and I'd be trying to live stream all the Volvo footage and everything. So, yeah, you know, it was pretty cool to be able to, you know, sail and win a Hobart together. And, yeah, I've learned a lot from him, from, you know, sailing with him in the last few years. And he's been, you know, a bit of a role model and an idol of mine for a while. So it's pretty cool.
Thanks, Lucas.
And Chris, who you've sailed with a lot of guys that are probably even older than me.
Yeah.
Do you look up to anyone, or have you received some advice that's been invaluable?
Oh, I've received plenty of advice. I don't, you know, like the race has kind of evolved. The Volvo, like the first one I did was with Grant Dalton, and that was just a bloodbath.
He was a fitness freak, wasn't he?
Yeah, but just they were just hard cases back then. You know, like our sleeping arrangements, our hygiene, everything was really bad.
Yeah, and you lost a lot of weight on a long leg, didn't you?
Yeah, I lost heaps, 6-8 kilos each leg, long leg. But it was just like it actually wasn't that enjoyable. Like it was like you sailed and raced really hard. But back then, you know, like they wouldn't even really advise you what clothes you should be taking. It was like if you could survive it, you were okay, and it wasn't like. So luckily, but the actual how hard you race, that actually hasn't changed much. We kind of race, I think, at a similar level, but we're just smarter now. You know, I'd come out of Olympics where you really focused and you're really finely tuned, and then you got into this and it was just carnage. Like, so, but they were, you know, they were super tough, those guys. Like, and yeah, so that was good. Like Dalt's was good fun, and you know, it was good to watch how you can run a program and manage people, and you know, you got to remember, you know, you're managing and looking after people in some pretty difficult situations at time, and you know, like you do around the world race, it sorts you out. You can, you know, like you kind of find what all types of people are made of.
And with that, the technology advancements, I remember coming home with yourself, I think it was from Adelaide with the 18s, or it might have been from Melbourne or something like that. And you were talking to different sail makers and different people building the boats and technology and so forth. What do you think is ahead now as far as technology goes in the Volvos or the Hobarts, you know, the Maxis and so forth? What do you think will MI have an influence on sailing, or what do you think?
Oh, I think you see it now with all the foiling going on, and you know, like the Sail GP and the America's Cup, you know, they're foiling at super high speeds, you know, 40s, you know, early 50 knots. So, you know, and you know, the Maxi trimarans just completed round the world in 50 days solo foiling. So, you know, like So all that, that's, and all young kids now, that's what they want to do. They're out winging, they're out mothing, they're foiling, or whatever. But to me, like, there won't be another big advancement like that, I don't think, for a long, long time. The only next thing is maybe for them to fly. Those high-end boats, maybe then you could do some sort of foil slash, like maybe surface skim, because at the moment you can't get foils to go faster than 50 knots without them, But a few years ago, 42 was the number. Now it's 50. But I can't see that being much quicker. But to me, the exciting part, I think, is like eventually, on your cruising catamaran or cruising yacht or your powerboat here on the lake, eventually will be foiling, I think, and it will be foiling because of all the groundbreaking stuff in ocean racing and cup that'll allow a fairly simple, computer-controlled but super efficient system, and we need to do it because we shouldn't be doing what we do with outboards and fuel, and we don't need to. It's already there, but it's just going to take time to come through.
So that was from the electrician. Now the engineer. What's your views on the future?
He's got to make it happen.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Classic. They come up with the good ideas and we make it happen. I'd have to back Chris up there. The foiling stuff at the moment's like taking some leaps and bounds, and I kind of followed that race around the world that the guys did solo pretty closely, and it's incredible the speeds that they're going and the stuff that they're doing with that. And then I think also with going quicker, there will be other developments just by nature of it having to happen. So sails will change, maybe rigs will develop differently. If you're going faster, you're going to need to develop other things on the boat. So there'll definitely be some changes, I think, in rigging and masts and rotating rigs and stuff like that will kind of filter more down to the base level. Yeah, so they're trialling some of them on one of the Sail GP boats at the moment. Our team actually did a little bit of trialling on it towards the end of last year, and they seem to be pretty cool. I think it's a step forward and probably a bit more reliable as well. There's been some breakages on the foils that we currently have, so I think they're stronger and probably more robust and reliable. But yeah, some of the numbers in terms of what those things cost and the wastage off, they're machining out of a solid titanium block, and it's incredible. Pretty crazy, some of the stuff out of there.
But the Sail GP circuit's really unique. It's obviously funded or set up from Larry Ellison, and multi-billionaire, and he's eventually it'll get there. I don't think it can stand on its own 2 feet yet, but there's more and more private sponsorship coming into it. But you look at how difficult, Sydney was a really, really difficult event for us with so many rules and regulations. We weren't even allowed to crane the boats in because of what happened last year. But we weren't allowed to crane the boats in over 17 knots. And then how do we get the boats out of the race course is so difficult and risky for us. So it's a really difficult event to put on. So what they look like they're going to do is build a custom, purpose-built ship that'll house all the boats, and will have 2 cranes on it. So that will be like an aircraft carrier where the boats will stay assembled as such. The wings will come out. And then this boat will take the boats and the people working on the boats to around the world, and that's how it's going to roll for 500 million. Yeah, Ellison and that will set it up, and hopefully, but then I think you'll be able to literally race weekend after weekend. The boats already assemble fairly quickly, but logistically, it's a bit of a nightmare trying to get them around the world, on current commercial shipping. So this they'll pack them up. They'll be underway on the Sunday night, and they'll be in the next port on the Wednesday or Thursday, and they'll race again, and that to me is a really massive change in what we're going to see in that side of the sport anyway. SailGP. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The Saudis, yeah, pretty much shit like that, do the grand final in 5 years. It's not necessarily the best track, is it?
Well, it wasn't this year. No, it wasn't. Yeah, but that contained area I still think looks good for spectators and camera work, but I don't think you're going to see a better looking place than Sydney Harbour though, and Shark Island.
More opportunities for passing.
Yeah, Belmont Bay. Could you imagine,
Bring
like,
them to the
you know,
lake.
like, sometimes it's hard to see just how quick they go, but when they're doing 40 knots, imagine it on doing 40 knots across here. Like they really haul. Sorry?
Put the base camp back on.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, like, you know, it's a high end. That is really at the high end of the sport. You know, they currently employ the best sailors in the world. You know, dinghy and foiling sailors.
When you say, like, they often say at the conference, share information, is that true, or is
Yep.
a bit underneath?
No, it's well, all the data points on board the boats are shared, and all the video is shared, and all the audio is shared. So you know, last night I was looking at the onboard video, audio, and some of the data from the Australian guys on the Sunday. Like, so yeah, it's all shared, and that's the only way a new team can kind of get up to speed. Because if it was like the Cup or like SailGP used to be, there'd just be a wall and you wouldn't be allowed to get anything. And then you're employing lots more coaches, lots more experts to try and figure out, try and help you get better. And you don't really know. You don't really, you know, you wouldn't know. Like, yeah, we have, you know, whatever, meeting after meeting, trying to, you know, keep an eye on what the other teams are doing and working on, besides what we're also working on. So.
You said Aussies figure predominantly in a lot of the tracks. Is there a limit to how many other nationalities you have on certain boats?
As in, could we have 2 Australian boats?
No, as in, like, number of crew. Like, you see often.
Yeah. No, you're allowed one non-nationality. Yeah. Yeah, I still think it'll be a little, maybe a bit more of an age thing. I don't know. You know, we're seeing, like, say for instance, Nikolai on Rockwell. You know, I don't think he wouldn't have even foiled boats 4 years ago, right? But he's a real talent, and all of a sudden now he's able to knock it out. You know, with these guys who have had 15 years in America's Cups and foiling. So, and there's a couple of other guys, perhaps similar, on the circuit, and eventually they will bump. You know, it's just how it all works. But you know, seems to be still, you know, still top of the game, still fit, like sailing the best boats in the world. Why would you want to do anything else? 43 knots. Yeah, it didn't end very well. The skippers, like the data point, like, you know, they'll have a lot of information on the wind. They kind of know. The one thing is them knowing where the race course is, you know, because it's it's essentially, you know, it's an electronic race course. They have marks there, but the marks are also automated, so they move. So they have a windscreen that allows them that, and also some vision of other boats. So that's super important. But you know, our biggest concern at the moment is another impact collision with another boat. You know, Lucas and that. How much work do you guys do in terms of, you know, trauma, treating, you know, an impact trauma and, you know.
From the medical point of view, that's basically our biggest fear, is there being a collision between two boats and then one boat riding up on another and then people getting seriously injured. So that is probably one of the biggest safety things that we concern about. And there's a bunch of things that they have on board, like there's an alarm system. If you come within a certain distance of another F50, it'll set off an alarm in the skipper's earpiece, so they can sort of, if they haven't seen it yet already, they can hear it, and then that at least makes them aware. And then also, you know, back to the coach booth where Chris and some of the other guys sit, they can see the whole race live, and they have all those data points as well, and they are able to interject information to the skipper. So, you know, there's potential that they could, you know, sort of stop something happening there as well.
But eventually, you know, it's like Formula One. Eventually, there will be a big incident, and we're all nervous and worried about it, and everyone's working as hard as they can to stop it. But it's fundamentally a lot of fast boats, very close to one another. And
beyond safety, I guess safety about
yeah, way too much. You know, like I think there's like 3,000 data points on the boat, of which, I don't know, maybe 50 or 60, I guess, are super important. I try and stay out of that side of it. A couple of reasons: I'm not smart enough, and you know, our crew are so technical, right? And you know, like, you just have to say to them, you know, like, we've got an issue jiving or tacking, or you say to them, you know, I think we need to do a wider, more VMG type jive, and they can go away and do it. Like, that's what they're good at. You know, like, you know, my job is to kind of try and make sure they're working on the right things. Like, when I first joined them, they were working on, you know, they probably would have tried to have understood the 3,000 data points and, you know, thought that they needed maybe to work with 200 of them, but really that's not the game, I don't think. And so we've really wound back on that. We have a super smart data analyst guy who's just, you know, but we can come to him with ideas of, you know, how we monitor the other boats, how we check it against our own, and he can write the code for that. And you know, so we run a fair bit of our own in-house, you know, stuff that I'm pretty sure a few other teams aren't doing. But you know, like, you know, our guys, they'll get there. It's just a question of the timing, and yeah, I'm quite sure we will.
Just in wrapping up, Chris and Lucas, if you could just briefly let us, obviously you want your house finished off and so forth and move out of the boat shed. Lucas has just found a new abode with a new partner. And what's in store for you two guys? Seeing we're coming into autumn and winter, have you both got stuff in the Northern Hemisphere, or what's on the agenda for the next couple of months?
Yeah, well, I guess for both of us, we'll be finishing the season with the Sail GP, so that'll kind of keep us reasonably busy until July, I think it is. And then sort of in the meantime, doing a bit of sailing around here on a TP52 as well. There's kind of a bit of a few regattas that we do with that. And then towards the end of the year, potentially back to Europe. I'm part of one of the J-class sailing boats, so there's a few regattas around the Cup towards the end of the year. So yeah, potentially back to Europe doing some stuff there, and then back into the Hobart at the end of this year.
Yeah, no, I'm all pretty similar. Some gunboat, like a catamaran, 70-foot cat, some racing on that in Europe. Might end up coaching like in one of the America's Cup, the AC40 youth and women's team. And then also, Sail GP. You know, Sail GP, we're away every month for it's kind of like a week for me. It's what, 10 days?
10 days for me, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, these guys kind of stretch out the job quite long, you know.
Cleaning
bit
up
of
your
sightseeing,
mess.
bit of social stuff.
Yeah, we got to clean up his mess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we'll be there. But it's but it's like you know, it's pretty hectic, but it's really cool to see. You know, like I would have thought if you'd asked me 5 years ago where Lucas's future would have been, it would have been high-end ocean racing. Like, he's so good at it. But now the way the world's kind of turned out, you know, the Volvo doesn't happen anymore. We don't have fully crewed offshore boats, so kind of, you know, it's such a shame. Like, with the around the world, we used to kind of, or you know, used to bring young people through, like when I was, and then that ends up a really good career, and it's a full industry. And at the moment, the sport's missing that. It's not just money. It was probably too much money to do that, and you're competing against the sports like Sail GP and the Cup. And so, you know, like it's not necessarily good or bad, but that's just where it is at the moment. There's more into the Sail GP, I think, at the moment.
So the pathways for, say, a young kid who's just sailing at club level, has got potential, maybe look to get into an Olympic class and so forth, or has that sort of been left behind a bit?
No, that's still primarily, you know, I think one of the main draw points, because, you know, like if you're going to do Olympics, you're going to have been you're going to have been good, but you're going to have been really disciplined and really good work ethic, and those are the things that will help you in whatever sport or, you know, whatever you want to do. But like, I think, you know, we've got a mixture on board the Sail GP team. We've got some scientists and we've got some surfers sort of deal. And you know, and the surfers just, you know, like the guys that do the flight control or the wing, you know, they're the guys that I reckon should, you know, you want them to come straight off the skateboard ramp, you know, and just come into the base just doing all the tricks and like got amazing natural skills. But then you also need the boffins that can then, you know, kind of steer them along the way. And I'm neither any of them. I kind of just sit in the middle.
I just had a quick read of your bio, Lucas, and I think you don't mind having a surf when opportunities available.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know Chris is pretty much just sailing, father, reasonable husband, Mixie was saying. Any other interests that are a little bit quirky at all?
No, you know, like you said, I do enjoy the surf, and I think that kind of helps the sailing a little bit, especially driving offshore. I think that was like a pretty good thing. I think you just get a natural understanding of the waves, and so I think that's helped. In terms of other interests, there's not too much. I try to play guitar every now and then, but I'm not very good at it.
What's your favourite genre?
Don't know, just campfire music.
Fair enough. You have a question of your son, Steve? Oh, wait.
I'd like to know why you chose the East Coast of Tassie and he chose the West Coast.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
check out what the
It was a recon mission. Yeah.
Yeah. How windy was it, Chappo?
Yeah, he should be up here telling that story.
Exactly.
It's probably a little bit harder than our one,
Wow.
our trip to Hobart.
Fair enough. Well, we might wrap it up there, folks. I'd really like to thank Lucas and Chris for coming along tonight. Dave Cookie approached myself Christmas time while I was spending a couple of weeks here. It's been a great night. Hope everyone's enjoyed it. And I'll hand over to the Commodore, Geoff, and to wrap us up this evening.
Thank you, Geoff. You just took a little bit of me thunder, but that's all right. It's been an amazing night. It's been very entertaining, and I'm sure everyone is. When you were finishing in the Derwent, you had the eyes of just about every member of this club watching you. And I was a little bit disappointed to find out that you weren't actually members of the club.
We're never here. But yeah.
I was going through every boat that was in that, who were the members and so forth and who weren't. I found out that you guys weren't. I thought, oh, this is no good. But Cookie got onto me early and said, we need to get these guys to talk. And I said, I'm 100% behind it, Cookie. He said, David, great job. He also... But I can't leave here tonight leaving these two guys not members of the club. So I have membership for these two guys, honorary membership to our club. And there's a round on there for both of you, or two. So thank you very much for coming here tonight. It's been an awesome night. And thank you, Geoff, great MC. And thank you all for being here and making a great night of it. And that's it. Thank you, good night.
Thank you.